So, let's see. Try to record this now. Okay. All right. So anyway, here we go, guys. This is week number 12, and it's hard to believe, but I can't believe that we're officially here. And this is the very last session of this particular root camp. And I just want to give everybody a big round of applause, and I want you guys to give yourselves a big round of applause as well. So take a minute here and congratulate yourselves. Am I the only one clapping or what? All right, yes. Very good, very good. So, I know Sandy's on mute, so she just gave us a big woohoo. So anyway, guys, first and foremost, you should feel incredibly um, good about yourselves, and you should feel just a major sense of accomplishment. You know, the fact that you embarked upon this journey coming out of Power Up, and 12 weeks later, here we are. So, what takes place from this point going forward is going to be really a demonstration of kind of where you're at and the value that you got out of the program. So, what we're going to talk about in this last session here is really developing leadership within your team. And we're going to talk really a lot about what leadership is, and we're going to talk about some of the traps of falling into, quote unquote management mode versus always staying in leadership mode. And so the agenda, again, here we are. It's the very, very end. So we've accomplished all of the things that we set out to accomplish 12 weeks ago. So as a recap, a reminder, we talked about really what this root camp was going to entail and the overview of the expectations of what this was. We went through time management and productivity tools. We really discussed in depth more about how to become a talent scout and recruiting up versus sponsoring down. Then we went through how to conduct a successful home meeting and or a webinar, and a lot of that information you can take with you, going forward, and you have a lot of materials and documentation and so on, to use. Then we went through ad libbings for amateurs. We talked a lot about Danny Johnson back then, and the script book and so on, and really to learn how to be a professional and to go pro, versus kind of being an ad libbing amateur. On week number 6, we went through some third-party tools with, the Randy Gage, check out the Biz video. We talked about the Brilliant Compensation video that Tim Sales has available, and other third-party tools to validate and grow your business. Then we went into the personal customer communication campaign, and then we talked a little bit about lead generation and some cold market prospecting. And what do you do without the names after your initial list? Week number 9, we had a pretty in-depth training on the first 30, 60, 90 days of a new associate's lifespan and what that training looks like. Then we went through the art of promoting and the skill of tap rooting. And then week number 11, last week, I want to give a big, really special thank you and a sincere, heartfelt gratitude and appreciation for Cam and Bobby Leach, stepping in last week and doing an absolutely excellent job with preparing the information and putting everything together. It was just incredible job. So, round of applause, guys, for everybody on this call. For Cam and Bobby Leach last week, if we could. Awesome. So very, very good job, guys. And then this week we're talking really about the leadership aspect. Developing leadership within your team, and what do you do kind of going forward, from this point from today. So we're going to talk a little bit about the recap of last week. I'm going to give you some brief heads up on the Date with Destiny. I think Danielle just joined us because I hear the keyboard going. Okay. Danielle, welcome aboard. Yes, are you there? Okay, great. Okay, so then we're going to talk a little about the Date with Destiny, and we're going to kind of talk briefly about how to close out 2013 with a bang, And I think pretty much everybody on the call has already scheduled their 30-minute, one-on-one coaching call with me for this week or next. And then we're going to get right into the heart of this last session here, which is really becoming a leader and developing other leaders. And what does that really mean, and how do you do it, and what does it look like, and so on. And where do you go from here, from this point, today going forward. So this is really what we started off with. This is we embarked upon this journey, as we talked about 12 weeks back, and you can see just the roots of your labor and the efforts, and it takes time, to recognize the development of your efforts. I'm gonna go ahead and mute everybody out here for a second, and I'm not sure if the recording stopped. I think it might have. Hang on one second. Let me see something here. Oh, nope, it didn't. Still going. All right, good. There we go. Mute the phones here. Mute all. Okay. All right, great. All right, so again, we went through. There we go. Back in action. Back in action. This is kind of really what the last 12 weeks have looked like. And, you're going to really recognize a lot more of what you've gone through over the past 3 months, over the next 3 months, when you now start going into the application component, even more so of the information. And we're going to talk about, making sure that you don't just kind of fall off the cliff and, have nothing to plug into going forward. There's going to be some opportunities, that we'll talk about at the end here. So when we first started, guys, one of the things I put together for you was just a brief chart on the expectations of what you can expect from me during the session, and what I was expecting from people who were on the root camp. And you'll recognize that there's some people that were on the first call or the first 2 calls, that are no longer on the root camp calls. And it's not a right thing or a wrong thing. It just didn't fit into what they were doing right now, or they weren't willing to to do what needed to be done of what the root camp required, which is fine. It doesn't mean that anybody's a good person or a bad person. It just means that they understood what the game was, they understood what the rules were, and realized that they just weren't able to fulfill playing at that level. So again, for all of you guys who are on this call right now, and you've stuck out the last 12 weeks, I just want you guys to acknowledge really what you're capable of, because I guarantee that there was times in the last 12 weeks, maybe in the 4th week or the 5th week or the 6th week or 7th week, where you were seriously considering whether or not you could finish this program. In the chat box, just put that's true or not. Just put if there was times during this that you were ready to say, I don't know if this is for me, I'm not sure if I can do it, I don't know if I'm going to make it to the end. So no for Dennis, good. Sandy said first week, which is totally normal. Russ said nope. Never wanted to give up, but I haven't done as much work as I wanted to. Okay. No? Cool, Maurice. Where's the chat? Chat box down here. There we go. Great. So there are times, I said that you can expect for me to be prepared, for me to be focused, for me to be accountable, punctual, be on time, to come with a positive mental attitude, to provide instruction, direction, homework, etc., to give you guys what you need, not necessarily always what we want, and then 110% commitment to your results and to complete the program. And then some of the expectations from you guys, this is basically an indication that you've fulfilled your end of the bargain, is your preparation. You guys did an extraordinary job, being on time for all the calls, getting your homework assignments completed and getting the work done, staying in touch with me via email or phone calls or texts. You guys did an absolutely incredible job. I noticed you guys were focused on the calls. You weren't really multitasking. You were able to answer the questions, when we asked for, participation and so on. You guys all came with a great positive mental attitude. You followed instructions, completed your assignments, and you you really did a lot of the isn't that interesting part. And what's funny, Tony Robbins, he has a phrase that's similar to the isn't that interesting. He says, something to think about. That's the phrase that he uses. And then, you guys have been 110% committed to your own results. And so for all of that, I'm just extremely, extremely proud, of each and every one of you guys on this call right now, and I'm just super, super happy for you. So, um, I would typically, in the previous sessions, we would go through a couple of shares in the beginning, but we have some content to get through here first that I want to make sure you guys get as much value as possible out of. And let me go back to the screen here. Okay, so we're going to talk about leadership today, and leadership is a pretty vague topic, but I think we all pretty much know also what leadership entails, and it's really a matter of whether or not um, we embark upon this journey of leadership and really knowing what that requires and what that is going to entail, time wise and psychologically, emotionally, financially. What does it really mean, for leadership? And does it mean that you have to have, a lot of people following you, to be a leader? And the answer really is no. I mean, we all know that in network marketing, you want to build a team and you want to, have people that are part of your downline in your organization. But the essence of leadership really is to lead oneself first. And from there, people and others can follow. But I wanted to go through just some stuff that we went through at Date with Destiny. And guys, if my voice sounds a little raspy, it's really because it is. We literally spent Sunday through Friday experiencing probably one of the single most profound weeks I've ever had in my life. This program with Date with Destiny was off the charts, and it continuously reinforced the belief I have in what Tony Robbins' mission is. It's incredible how much of a preconceived notion I had of him. If you told me 3 months ago that I would be, going to this seminar or spending, $8,000 or $9,000 or $10,000, on Tony Robbins programs and so on, if you told me this 3 months ago, I would have thought you were absolutely crazy. But I am convicted at my core that this particular leader has one of the largest hearts and one of the most remarkable resumes I've ever experienced in my life. And he knows exactly how to train people to bring about significant impact. Now, the things I think that were the coolest parts I wanted just to give you as an overview was that we got there and we all broke into teams. Okay, so the Unleash the Power Within is really much more about equipping you, and it's much more about each of us individually. Date with Destiny, you break into teams of 30 people. And there was probably about 2,200 people at this event, and so what basically it boiled down to was that everybody comes to these kinds of events, and Tony Robbins basically considers himself like the Wizard of Oz. And he says the job is it's remarkable and it's so cool, but he feels like the Wizard of Oz sometimes. Where people embark upon this journey and they're going out there looking for courage, or they come to this workshop looking for their heart or love, or they come to this workshop looking for their brain, or other stuff. And you guys all know the movie, and then what happens ultimately in that movie is that the journey that they all go through together, they discover that they actually already have the very thing that they're going to the Wizard of Oz to get. And the Wizard of Oz just basically reminds everybody that they already have what they came there for. And that's kind of what Tony Robbins' trainings are all about. He said, a lot of you guys come here to change, and think that I'm going to change you or that this seminar is going to change you in some area or some capacity. And the fact of the matter is that, I'm not going to change anything about anybody because you really are perfect the way you are, except for the fact that you have patterns and you have beliefs and you have rules in your life that are governing you in some very unproductive ways, potentially. So, when you look at your life and you look around it and you look at your bank account, you look at your friendships, you look at your self-image, you look at your health, you look at the key areas in life, and you ask yourself, is there any area of my life that I feel like I could be more fulfilled, or that I wish I had more fulfillment in, or that I wish was stronger or better? And anybody who says no to that, has dwarfed their level of consciousness. Because there's always a higher place to go. So the answer is, of course, there's always more to learn and better, better things to aspire towards. But think about it this way. Think about, think about somebody taking your skull off your head, you know, reaching back, and then your brain is sitting there, and your brain is the most powerful machine, you know, in the world. I mean, the amount of information that it processes and the amount of data that it reconciles back and forth and that it evaluates and senses and everything else is incredible. But think about the fact, you know, back in the day, you know, to have a slideshow. You guys probably all remember they used to have like an actual a slide, right, from a picture. A picture would be in a slide. There would be one of those round carousels that would have like 100 or 200 little slots in it for those. This is probably before Dennis and Russ's time, but there would be a little there'd be overhead projectors. Yeah, exactly, Sandy. So you'd have an actual slide that you could pull out, and it would have a white border, and then inside there would be the actual film that would have a picture on it, and then you would click the little button, and all of a sudden it would the round circle would move one notch, and that the new picture would show up on the slide, and then you click it again, and another picture would show up on the slide, and so on and so forth. So think about those slides. If you would open your skull and look down and your brain's there, and just say that in the very front, you know, between your forehead and your brain, there's a slide there. Okay, this is really what Tony Robbins refers to as your blueprint. Okay, and so he said that the whole week is really designed to take that blueprint out and to look at all of those key things, you know, in our life. Really look at our beliefs, look at our driving forces, look at our emotions, look at the meanings that we give to things, um, look at all aspects of our life in terms of how we view things, from our own rules, our own belief system, our own emotions. You know, how do we end up getting sad? How do we end up getting overwhelmed? How do we end up getting, you know, happy and joyful, and looking and identifying all the patterns of what leads to that, you know, what takes place, how that works. And so it's a blueprint that's been kind of running our lives, that's really been conditioned for however long you've been alive, 20 years, 15 years, 30 years, 60 years, you know, 50 years, however long you've been around, you know, we've had these rules, emotions, you know, behaviors, and so on and so on and so on. And the whole week is really about identifying where all this came from, and then how to kind of rewire our blueprints. When you put that back in between your forehead and your brain, and you close the lid back up and you put your skull back on, you know, that you have a new blueprint to follow. Because to create your destiny, right, is extremely possible to have it look exactly as you want it to look, but there are some techniques and tools and reasons as to why it doesn't look like that right now. Okay, and so that's really part of our blueprint. And it was I can't even really explain. The event itself is impossible to explain, so I'm not even going to try to do it. But it was my belief is this. My belief is that um, every human being, while they're alive, or while Tony Robbins is alive, because one day we're both going to all die, right? So while he's alive and while you're alive, I believe that every human being should experience a Tony Robbins event, and they would have an absolute transformation. And so I know Cameron and Russ and Dennis and myself, and there's about 10 other people that are going to be going down to Fort Lauderdale. In Heidi bought her ticket already. I mean, just it's going to be a powerful, powerful event. My goal right now is to get about 30 people down there, and you know, right now, think about the fact that, you know, Tony Robbins is one of the top 5 business consultants in the world, you know, out of 7 billion people that live on it. And so, given the fact that he's one of the top 5, not percent, but top 5 people, you know, in the world who creates transformation and change in people's lives by bringing out of them what they already know is inside, I couldn't endorse entrusting associates of mine or people or family or anybody else into his trainings. So I'm super excited about that coming up in February. Now, for this particular session, we're going to go through you know, what leadership objectives there are. You know, leadership 101. So to develop self-awareness and self-confidence, to develop strategies for self-empowerment, and to identify strategies to increase leadership skills. That's really what we're going to go through today. So leadership by itself has a couple different things that we're going to talk about, and really, there's three different areas underneath leadership: types of leaders, qualities of leaders, and gender in leadership, and what some of the differences are, or maybe there aren't any. We'll talk about that too. And then really helping to identify the leader within you. So that really always starts with a self-assessment, and then really discussing how do you develop and continue to develop your own leadership, and addressing challenges that come along with leadership. So some of the key terms is, people call leadership different things. Some call it leadership, some call it empowerment. Just in the chat box, if you guys type in other types of words there, like when you think about leadership, what other words come to mind when you guys hear that phrase, leadership? Okay, so we've got influence for Maurice. Great word, Maurice. Russ, you said when you hear leadership, you think of a captain, role model, manage. Okay, excellent. Sandy says a teacher. Dennis says a mentor. Cameron says transformational, transactional, participatory, direct, delegatory. Glad I was able to actually pronounce all those words. Danielle says I like Russ's. Very cool. Actually, she says not manage. Helping people to become all they can and want to be. Very cool, Danielle. Cameron says army training. That's where the big words came from. Excellent. So those are great, guys. Those are very, very good words there that come along with leadership itself. So, some characteristics of leadership. I think we all can identify, people who we think kind of hold the title of leadership, and probably for a variety of different reasons. And, when we talk about the different examples or characteristics of a leader, who, if you typed in the chat box, who is one person that when you hear the phrase leadership right now, who's one person that you think of? So type it in. Don't think about it. Just type it in right from your heart. Just boom. You hear the word leadership. Who do you think of? P.L. Travers. Okay. John Maxwell. Let's see here. Chuck Schumer. John Maxwell. Colin Parker Pritchard. John Maxwell. Great. Excellent. Okay. And when we talk about the different types of leadership, there's many different leadership styles. Now, it's funny because a lot of people think that leadership is a certain way, or as if there's only one way to demonstrate leadership. But there's a lot of different kinds of leaders. I mean, Napoleon was a different leader than Mahatma Gandhi. And Martin Luther King was a different leader than Stalin, or Mother Teresa was a different type of leader than even Pope John Paul II or anybody else. So there's a number of different types of leadership, and you're going to actually have a different type of leadership yourself. Some are autocratic. Some are they fit and start stuff. Some are inclusive leaders. They want to make sure everybody's involved. Some are very self-sacrificing or sacrificial leadership. They're always at the mercy of other people. Some are de facto leaders in general. Some are controlling. Some are popular, very, very popular, but they're overcommitted. Some never make a decision before it's time. Some leaders bite off more than they can chew. And then there's also, true, genuine leadership. And that's really where the top leaders, reach the ranks of being remembered as or known as a leader. So it's I had a book at home. I wish I had it with me right now. It was through a leadership development program I went through. And they really broke down the different categories of types of leaders. And you had to really kind of self-identify with which one it was that you saw in yourself. and then you had to do a 360-degree uh, survey, which meant you had to ask about 6 to 8 people who were connected to you from different walks of life in different different realms. Whether it's your church, your family, your business, and you had to have them complete an evaluation, a questionnaire about you as a leader, and really get some insight or some information as to how they felt of you as a leader. And it was the most fascinating exercise I went through a bunch of years ago, um, because the very things I thought that I was really, really good at, um, others around me didn't see me as good in those areas. And the things that I thought that I was really bad at or needed to work on, others around me, didn't think that I was as bad as I saw myself in those areas. So, generally speaking, where you think that you're good, others around you probably don't don't think that you're as good in those areas as you think that you are. And also, alternatively, where you think that you're poor and weak and bad, that other people around you don't necessarily associate you with being that weak and bad in those areas. So it's a really powerful way to to really get a leadership evaluation from a 360-degree perspective. Um, so qualities of an effective leader in general. If you guys were to talk about some of the qualities of an effective leader, instead of typing in the chat box here, um, if you just type in me, that means that you're volunteering. I'll call on you if you want to just share with us, what some of your thoughts are about the qualities of an effective leader. So who would want to? We need 3 people to share here. So who's the first person that wants to step up? All right. So Cam, you jumped on that. I will unmute you here if I can find you. All right, Cam, you there? Okay. So we'll do Cam, then we'll do Russ, then we'll do Danielle. What do you believe are the qualities of an effective leader? Okay, awesome. So integrity and loyalty. Awesome. Integrity and loyalty. Those are very, very powerful attributes. Excellent. Thanks, Cam. I'm gonna mute your phone here, and I'm gonna go over to Mr. Russ. So I'm gonna unmute your phone here, Russ. Can you hear me? Okay, we can hear you too. So what do you think of Russ? What are the qualities of an effective leader for you? Excellent. So be on time, be prepared, to be thoughtful, to be honorable, to be truthful. What was the last one? A good role model. Excellent. Excellent. Those are great ones, Russ. Thanks. Let me I'm going to go ahead here and mute yours, and I'm going to unmute Danielle. Go ahead, Danielle. Mm. Give it. Russ can't laugh. Russ is laughing on the chat box there, so he can't laugh because he's muted. um, so you added a good listener, somebody who can inspire others, and somebody who can give feedback, but also in an affirmative way. Great. Now, how would you describe somebody as a good listener? What does that look like to you from a leader's perspective? Wow. I hope everybody else heard that. Say it one more time, Danielle, because without your definition of listening and what you said Viridian has kind of brought out to you, those were two really powerful things. Can you repeat those? Hmm. Listening is love. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, do you guys all know? I mean, just in the chat box, you can put your answer in here. Have you guys all been in experiences where you knew that you were talking or working with somebody who was actually listening to you in the conversation? Yes, 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 yes. And you got a good shout out there from Maurice Danielle. It's a great job. Um, oh, thanks, Cam. Um, Now, have you guys also been in situations before where you knew that the person was already thinking about their response before you finished? Mm-hmm. Yep. Now, let me ask you this. Bring it back to a level of personal honesty. Have you ever been the person who has been thinking about what you're going to say before the person finished? Yeah, sure. Yes. Most of the time. Most of the time. Uh-oh. Who's that? Maurice? Most of the time? Um, so what that basically means, guys, is that unconsciously we all do it. So we have to be to be conscious of that. But so I mean those are some great things you guys also listed. I mean Cam said integrity, loyalty, Then we had Russ said somebody was on time, they're prepared, they're thoughtful, they're truthful, a man or woman of their word, and they're a good role model. And and then Danielle said somebody who's a good listener, somebody who's there to inspire and give good feedback and affirmations. So um, excellent. Well, thanks, Danielle. That was great. Dennis, you wanted to share, so I'm going to unmute you too here. So let me see. Can you hear it? Can you hear us? I think your phone's muted yourself too, Dennis. You might want to unmute your own phone. Dennis, can you hear us? I think your phone is self muted. I'm not sure. Oh, there you go. Are you there? We can't hear you, Dennis. So no, we can't. Sorry. I'm not sure why. Maybe your phone's on mute or something. Okay, I don't know. If it does work, Dennis, ultimately let me know, and then we'll come back to you. So, guys, I want to walk you through a closed eye exercise now. So, if you're driving, please do not participate in this. But if you are in a place where you can actually close your eyes, I want everybody to just sit down where you're at. Sit there and sit up straight in your chair, and close your eyes for a minute. And I want you to put your hands on your lap, and just sit upright and be comfortable, and have your feet firmly planted on the ground. And I want you to wiggle your toes a little bit right now. And I want you to wiggle your fingers and your hands. And then you can stop. Okay? And I want to walk you through just a little exercise. And I want you guys to right now, as we start, I want you to take in a real big deep breath right now. You know, through your nose and out through your mouth. So deep breath number 1. Exhale. Take another one. And exhale. And take one more. And smile as you exhale. And I want you to take a trip down a journey lane right now. And I want you to envision yourself when you are at that place a year from now, maybe 6 months from now, 3 years from now, 5 years from now, when you have a team of people, 100 associates, maybe 500, maybe 1,000, maybe 10,000 people that are all somehow a part of your team. And you're all together in one big forum, one big session. And you're able to sit there and you're on a chair that's on stage. A wonderful chair, a beautiful chair. It's a big chair. And your arms are up on the sides and you're smiling. And you have a whole sea of people that are out there, you know, whose lives you've impacted. And you look out and you see their faces and you see their smiles and you see them clapping. And they're clapping for you. And the reason they're clapping for you is because you somehow were given this position of leadership. And you somehow were given some award as a result of your actions. And ultimately you're looking out at the crowd and you say, I can't believe this is really happening right now. Because just 3 years ago, 36 months ago, I was sitting here on a telephone call. It was cold outside. It was December. It was 2013, right before Christmas time. And I remember sitting in my house, you know, just asking, you know, when is it all going to come together? You know, when is this going to happen? And after I finished this root camp, after you finished this course, you know, 3 years ago, you know, you had a lot of fuel inside of you. You had a lot of energy. And I want you guys to smile right now. And remember that you're sitting there and you're looking out at this group of 1,000 or 5,000 or 6,000 or 10,000 people that again are all part of your team, and they're all on their feet, and they're clapping and they're smiling, and some people have tears coming down their cheeks, tears of joy and tears of happiness, because they're the next ones that are going to be in that chair, maybe in a year or 6 months, you know, 3 years, because of the fact that you've helped them and you've worked with them. And you go back and you think about it as you're sitting in this chair and you're smiling, and this emotion is just overwhelming you, and this feeling and this thought of the fact that this is a reality, and you're sitting there and you have a tingle through your body. I want you to feel it in your toes right now. Feel it in your legs, feel it in your heart, and feel it because it's real. And just remember and remind yourself that 3 years ago, you sat there, you just finished up your last call of a training, and your team was at a certain place, and you were wondering, is it going to ever come together? When's it going to work? Things are happening. And once you remember that life is happening for you, and life's not happening to you, and I want you guys to just smile and remember that, you set out from this point today, and you just did a little something today, and a little something tomorrow, and a little something the next day, and a little something the day after that, and a little something the next month. And you kept doing these little things each day, and they kept attracting more and more to your world. It was like that snowball that was rolling down the hill, and it started with a flake at the top of the mountain, and then there was 2 flakes, and 3 flakes, and 4 flakes, and 5, then 10, then 30, and it starts to gain momentum, and starts to roll and roll and roll. And here you are, 3 years later, you're being honored and respected for being given this huge award, the leadership reward. And the leadership award, is not a result of how great you were as a leader. It's not a result of how powerful you were. Your leadership was really a result of how many other people's lives you were able to influence and impact along the way. And it might not have seemed like a big situation. Think back 2 years ago, from this date when you're getting your award, and you're working with somebody and it seems like it's a very meaningless interaction. But in reality, it was one of the most powerful interactions they've ever had in their life. And I want you to take yourself from wherever your age you are today, right now, and I want you to go back to when you were younger, when you were way, way, way younger. And I want you to think about the little things that certain people said to you, whether it was parents or siblings or friends or people in school, and think about the impact that had on you. I want you to feel that in your body right now. Remember those words. Remember what those things were that they said. Were they words of encouragement? Were they words of destruction? Were they words of people being rude to you and mistreating you? Were they words of people empowering you? Were they words of people that were bringing you up and lifting you up and inspiring you? Right? So no matter which one it was, it had an impact on where you are today. And it had an impact on how you view yourself in the world. And I want you to remember that, as you're journeying from today, from this December cold day, 2013, that each person that you're going to encounter from this point forward, each interaction that you have with each particular soul, tomorrow and next week and the following day, right? Each person is going to be an opportunity for you to have them remember, how you made them feel, not what you said to them. And then you fast forward again, bringing you back to this chair that you're on, this throne that you're on, and you almost feel like you don't even want to be on that throne. You don't deserve it, but deep down that you do, that you've worked really, really hard, and all it really is it's a combination and a culmination and a reflection of all your hard work. But the people that are out there, right, the 1,000, the 2,000, the 5,000, the 10,000 people, are all the people over the last 36 months that you've encountered. Some of them were on your team, some of them weren't. These are people at the checkout counters, people at the grocery store, people at the supermarket, people at the gas station, somebody you met at a church or synagogue, a passerby in the street. Every person that you've encountered for the last 10 years, or the last 3 years, and the question really becomes is how did you make them feel? Not what did you say to them, or what did you try to get them to do, for you, but how did you make those people feel? And they were all standing there, and they were clapping, because you became the best version of who you were designed to be. And by treating everybody else with the respect and dignity that you'd like to be treated with, you've ultimately built an empire for yourself, one that you deserve because you worked hard. And I want you to put your hands on your lap, and I want you to feel. I want your hands right now to go over your heart, and your eyes are still closed. And I want you guys to remember and just think and take a deep breath right now, but don't take it in through your head, right? Take it in through your heart, because right now you have the opportunity, going forward from today, to impact not just other people, but truly it starts with impacting yourself. And 3 years from now, as you're receiving this award, people are standing up on their feet and they're clapping, and they're cheering for you, it's really just a fulfillment of everything that you've been able to do in the last 36 months. And that's really what's possible. So I want you guys to open your eyes right now, and I want you to remember that that little journey, that little 60-second or 2-minute journey you just brought yourself down right now is something that you can do for yourselves, quite often. But the leadership aspect of, what that looked like, what had to happen, who did you have to become in the process of that exercise. So let's just go back real quick before we go on to the next piece here. What were some of the emotions that you guys felt as you were envisioning yourself in that position? Just type in a feeling or a thought that you were having as you were going through that exercise. Sandy felt open. Awesome. Drive, pride, inspiration. Spirit de coup. Yep. Let's see here. Confidence in who I am. Awesome. Decor. Yes. Thanks, Kim. Russ felt it. Felt inspired. Felt motivated. So, the journey, guys, of $5,000 a month or $10,000 a month or $3,000 a month or $30,000 a month, right? The money is never really the ultimate it, right? It's who we have to become in the process that's really the reward. So identifying, when you do a self-assessment, one of the first things that you want to do, and this is going to be part of your homework assignment, is you want to really identify kind of what qualities, you already have from a leadership perspective. And you also want to identify, what qualities you feel like you're lacking. And a lot of you guys did this in the first week or so. You started thinking about some of these different things as well. And we'll talk about those. But when you kind of look at from a leadership inventory perspective, there's kind of a number of different elements that go into the inventory of your leadership skills. So, for example, you have creativity, ambition, energy, motivation, vision, strategy. I would even say implementation along with strategy and management, kind of managing the process, so to speak. So a lot of it starts with, in terms of leadership, with really doing a self-assessment and saying, all right, well, where am I good as a leader? Where are the things, what are the aspects of leadership that are already strong suits for me? And then what areas are not? And then as you're developing your leadership, 4 things that are really paramount is, number 1 is seeking constructive feedback. So always asking people, what did you think? How did I do? Not because you're insecure about it, but you're looking to get feedback from other folks and to evaluate yourself. Then you want to seek out new roles and challenges. So you want to step up when possible and take on leadership opportunities. So if there's situations that are available and people are looking for somebody to, if it aligns with some of your skill sets, and it maybe takes you out of your comfort zone a little bit, perhaps that's a really powerful thing to get involved with. And anytime we get into our own head, we're dead. So if you live in your head, it's kind of game over for the most part. So you want to always seek feedback. I think all of us do. And you want to evaluate yourself, and you want to participate in new roles and challenges. And then we want to really practice our leadership, starting now. So if you guys were to practice, leadership starting now, what's one area that you guys would say that you'd have to really kind of focus on getting better at, for yourself, so that you can be a better leader for others? Like what's one area that has kind of not been 100% on spot, and that you've been a little bit weak with sometimes, and that if you were to strengthen this particular skill set, that you would probably be a better leader for other folks as well? So Danielle says consistency and balance. Okay, awesome, Danielle. Good share. Sandy says doing everything I say I will do. what does that mean, Sandy? When you say doing everything, because everything's a lot of things. Um, so doing everything I say I'll do. Can you just elaborate on that a little bit? Cameron says better management skills and time organization. And then Maurice, if you could elaborate on modeling a little bit as well, that'd be awesome too. Okay, so Sandy says instead of doing everything all the time, she said, of course. What I mean is that when I make a commitment to myself, that I'll fulfill it. Great. Dennis says being disciplined. So in the chat box, guys, have you guys ever made a commitment to yourself and then didn't keep it? Oh my gosh, I'm blown away. You guys make commitments to yourselves and don't keep them. So in other words, you're basically saying that you're human. So that's a good thing. So is we're so bad. I know, right? So do you guys think it's possible that somebody might join your team and commit to doing something and then not do it? Who said never? Is that Danielle? Yeah. So who wants to volunteer? How do you handle this conversationally as a leader? Just type in me if you want to volunteer. Miss Goodman, let me get your phone unmuted here. And let's see. Okay. Are you there, Sandy? Mm-hmm. Hmm. I'm gonna mute your phone because I hear the echo again. Um, but I wanted to say that those were some great pearls of wisdom right there. Um, and from what I heard you say, that you kind of you come from a place of assuming that, or not even assuming. I don't want to say assuming, but you come from a place of giving people the benefit of the doubt that they're doing the best they can with the resources that they have, and that's kind of what I heard you say, and that people don't generally want to upset themselves or other people, and that they're not purposefully trying to be defiant. They just, for some reason, perhaps, didn't get it done the way that they thought they were going to, or the way that they wanted to, and that maybe they were being lazy, but presumably that they weren't, and um, that they would have wanted to have gotten it done. So the second thing I heard you say there, which I thought was really really powerful, um, is that you try to set the expectations up from the beginning, um, which helps minimize some of the backside stuff, where people are they have a greater degree of understanding on the front end,
so that there's not as much disappointment on the back end. Is that accurate as well? Okay, I'm going to assume that that was yes. Um, okay, yes, and also to remind people so that they're thinking of it. Yep, absolutely, absolutely. So, um, you know, so a leader has to really, number one, kind of put it out there. Number two, follow up a little bit, make sure the person is reminded and feels a little bit of, the heat, so to speak, and and then also discuss with them how it went, and if they didn't do it, kind of what happened. Um, all right, and then there was somebody else who wanted to share also. I think that was okay, Cam. Great. So let me unmute your phone, Cam. All right, fire away. Mm. Yeah, and Danielle put in the chat box here. I like that as an action attitude, Cam. Only difference is how I do it is I would ask it as a question rather than make it as an observation for them to discover with me as a witness. Um, so let me ask you guys this from a leadership perspective. Um, what do you do when you're working with somebody and you recognize that the pattern continues to take place, um, on more than one occasion, and that you see this person going down a path that is that's not in their best interest. And I'm not just talking about Viridian. Obviously, Viridian is part of the equation, but I'm just saying that in life, what do you do when you see somebody going down a path that is not leading them towards a good place? Who wants to share that one? So Danielle says, express concern in the larger perspective. Can you elaborate on what that means, Danielle? A little bit more? Sandy says, I appreciate it when people have had patience with me and kept calling me on my patterns. Excellent. Russ says, help them understand why they are going down the wrong path. Cam says, call them out individually. So Cam, you says, call in out individually. Talk to them individually, not in front of people. Right. Yeah. And then Danielle says, make the observation, pretty much like Sandy said, from a point of view or a concern for them rather than a judgment. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. You guys probably know, and this is more rhetorical than typing something else in the chat box, but you guys probably know when you're coming from a place um, of frustration or anger or micromanagement than when you're coming from a place of love and concern. And it's a totally different place when you're coming from, from one versus the other. And it doesn't mean that it's easy, right? Having tough conversations is never easy. So developing your leadership also really revolves around seeking training opportunities. So places that you can actually participate or be a student. But they always say, to teach is to learn twice. And boy, it's one of the reasons I really like teaching on certain topics, because it really kind of helps me and reminds me of the things I need to constantly remind myself of. So, if you want to change your world, change what you focus on. Number one, and then from there, this is one of the things we learned at Tony Robbins. You change what you focus on, then you change what meaning you give it, and ultimately that's going to change your emotions, which then sets things in motion. So, seeking out these different training opportunities, like being on this call or thereafter, and then you also want to surround yourselves with leaders. Birds of a feather do flock together, and I'll give you an awesome example briefly of one of the breakthroughs that many people had this week. Um, so what happens for the most part at events like this is that you break into your little small groups, and we had a buddy. This is a date with Destiny, by the way. Sorry, I should have made that more clear. So this past week, we're at Date with Destiny, and we had a buddy that you're assigned on the first day or the second day, and that's your buddy for the week. Somebody who you pretty much share everything with, you talk about stuff with, and you help each other. And then the two of you were part of a bigger group. So we were team number 21 was our group. It was Destiny Designers Designing Our Dreams was the name of our team, and then we're all in the main room, during the main session. So we're basically all in the main room, pretty much the whole session. But we're sitting in our group numbers, and then usually you're sitting next to or with your buddy. So, every major session that we went through, we would kind of break out and just sit there with your workbook, and you'd go through the exercise and writing out your answers and whatnot with your buddy and sharing it with your buddy. And then some people would share when we kind of focused back up on Tony on the stage. We would, he'd ask for some people who had observations or thoughts or what the reactions were and so on. And there was some shares. There was probably about 20 shares over the course of the week, 20 or 30 major shares, and a lot of them ended up going into interventions. So interventions sounds like a pretty intense word, but Tony, after having 4 or 5 million people come through his workshops over the last 30 years, and having consulted many of hundreds of millions of people around the world through his platforms and programs and everything else thereafter, outside the live sessions, he has a pretty good read on people. At this point, he's got a real solid understanding of when people say certain things, when body language says certain things, that it probably means it's in this category. And he has a brilliant way of identifying what those issues are, and then bringing them out through asking questions. And it was fascinating to watch these interactions, live. So people would get up there and share certain things, and the example I wanted to give you, the story I wanted to share with you, was that everybody really has
two or three or four or five different personalities, right? I mean, you become a different version of yourself when you're anxious and have high anxiety, or you're frustrated, or when you're successful, or you're feeling like you're on top of the world, and so on and so forth. So one of the things he talks a lot about is when you bring a dog home, what do you do with the dog? Well, the first thing you do with it is you name it, and then you train it. You train it to come when you call, to fetch this, fetch that, and so on. So, he basically says, yes, you have a name, Sandy or Danielle or Michael or Cam or Don or Russ or Bobby or whoever. You have a name. You were given a name, but you also have different personalities inside of yourself, and and you have to name that person too. And it was this whole exercise of that for the most part. So this one guy, his name was Jonathan, and and he was kind of sharing this story. We were doing this 8 levels of consciousness program, and you had to kind of evaluate where you were on the consciousness scale, and the highest level of that, is somebody who's in like complete and utter, you know, um, tune with the world, on every possible vibration or level, all the way down to, a very, 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 very undeveloped uh, person, and then all the way through the process, you can keep growing through the process, but you'll never end up getting rid of, one of the levels that you came from. They were all ultimately tied together. So anyway, long story short, this one guy gets up there and he's sharing this story and this and that and so on. And what Tony identified was that, and he talked a lot about the fact that every human being has a masculine and a feminine side, right? We all have a feminine side and a masculine side, and so a man has also a feminine side, um, and a female also has a woman also has a masculine side. Um, Whoops, sorry guys, hang on. Sorry. Okay, there we go. So what was apparent was that this guy that was sharing, not that he was you know um, feminine in his voice or in his body language or anything like that. He was just the story he was sharing was indicating to Tony that he was coming. He's been operating more out of his feminine, side than he has his masculine side, and and in any event, Tony kind of brought him down this story, this path, and you literally were able to witness somebody have a transformation, literally because of the fact that they shared and put themselves into a place of being vulnerable, um, and he completely transformed and reclaimed, who he really was, and it really went back to the stories of, one of the questions Tony asked a lot was, whose love did you crave, growing up, your mother's or your father's, and then depending on the answer to that, it kind of led to a series of other questions, um, and ultimately it really shows how wherever we are right now in our life, was as a result of these patterns that had been developed over time. And the story's a little confusing to try to share, obviously, in this forum, but between him and about 10 other women who shared stories in their life, uh, you literally watched people's like face and body and skin change at the snap of a finger. Once this transformational conversation took place, and it was powerful. The reason I'm sharing the story is because on the screen here, where it says "surround yourself with leaders," this particular person who was at this event, this guy, Jonathan, um, he was in a forum this past week with all leaders, obviously, but the story that Tony walked him through was that he was born as a baby tiger, and that over time he kind of got mixed up and ended up getting put into this group of sheep and lambs, and that this tiger started to go bah 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 like a little lamb, and ultimately this tiger kind of grew up and thought it was a lamb, and it wasn't eating any meat, it was eating grass and all sorts of crazy stuff, and on and on and on and on, and Tony was going through the story as he's trying to train this guy, and then it turns out where this tiger grows up and ultimately comes to this lake and looks down, and looks in the reflection and sees, this ferocious tiger, sees himself for the first time, and the guy had to name, who this side of this version was of himself, because once he saw it in the reflection, there was a whole pack of tigers that were behind him. And anyway, this was like, it was a metaphor. Obviously, it was a story, but ultimately, this guy Jonathan ended up running back with the tigers. That's really who he is. That's who he was. Of course, he has a side to himself, that is that was softer, and it was based on his experiences with his mom or his dad growing up, and so on and so forth. So he had to name, who this new tiger was, and like it had to give this like sound of who it was, whatever. And anyway, he came up with this name Jericho. So everybody knew this guy as Jericho. Well, Jericho also has a softer side, and he has to name that person and name that side as well. But the point is that once you can identify that when you go into those modes, it doesn't mean that's who you are forever. Like that's a side of yourself that's come out, and we all have those different sides of ourselves. We try to hide to the world, but the reality is everybody has them, and they're just different. So, as you're embarking upon your own leadership development here, it's important. And I'm not going to go through the exercise that we went through in 6 days, with you guys on this telephone call. But the point, you can understand that the point is that when you can really become comfortable and take off all these masks, and that was really the other part of this week that we went through, was that people they just have all these masks on, and they're not necessarily always walking around as their true authentic self. They're hiding stuff, and they have these masks that are just covering up these different things, and so on and so on and so on. And a lot of that has to deal with leadership, because if you can't become a truly authentic version of who you are, and then help other people do the same thing, it's very difficult to lead people when they have all these masks on. Especially, it's hard to lead people when we have all these masks on ourselves. So that's why I think this bullet here, surround yourself with leaders, is so important. There was other women who had to share stories, and one of them was a really really uptight woman. She seemed like she was very stressed, and her whole body language was like very tight, and she was operating more in her masculine, than she was in her feminine. And then after a bunch of conversations and questions and interaction with Tony, he calls it an intervention. She just had a total transformation. She was very driven. She was very successful in real estate, and so on and so forth. But there was parts of herself that she hadn't identified with or connected with in a long time. And when you watched him reconnect people, to these other sides or versions of themselves, and then just give them a name, it was really awesome. I mean, it was really really powerful. So I know that was a little bit of a tangent there, but when you're in these kinds of environments, and you're with other leaders, your leadership is basically gonna basically enhance your ability to lead not only yourself but your others. And let me go over. I think Sandy said I object to the idea of feminine equaling sheep and soft versus masculine eager tiger tight. That wasn't what it was, Sandy. That was the example that he had in the story he was working with this guy Jonathan, and Jonathan's really his true self, his true being. You had to be there really to experience it. I was just giving you a recap of the story, so don't take it too literal unless you're there. But the reality is that that's just surrounding yourself with other key leaders is important. So whether it's going to be within Viridian or outside of Viridian or otherwise, that's one of the key ingredients there. So let's just talk here before we depart on this topic here of leadership. Is that there are going to be some challenges that come with leadership, and I'm just curious as to possibly maybe in the chat box there, what are some of the possible challenges that you guys envision coming up? When you take on a leadership role, what are some of the challenges that you're going to probably encounter, if you haven't already encountered them? Having to cut through the fluff. Leaders find a way to make things happen. Followers find a reason to shirk responsibility. And sometimes followers end up
Sometimes followers end up in leadership positions, and we must know how to deal with it. Interesting. Taking care of others and forgetting to take care of my own business. Financial knowledge. All right, so let's start at the top here. So Danielle says having to cut through the fluff. That's one of the challenges that you might embark upon. So I'm going to unmute you for a minute, Danielle. So elaborate on that a little bit. When you say one of the challenges that you might come up with, or maybe you already have, is cutting through the fluff, what does that mean to you? Mm. Mm-hmm. That's. I only laugh because I know what you're talking about. So in the past, you operated more on a direct basis. You're saying, right? Okay. 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 So the balance being, on one hand, being too direct years ago versus now being not direct enough, possibly. Okay. So, so what's the balance? What do you feel like the balance is, or how do you find that balance? So, give me an example of a situation that could occur. Let's start with that. Give me an example of a situation that you believe might come up that would present itself as a challenge. Now that you are, let's just say, a leader in Viridian, for example, what's an issue that might come up in your organization or your downline that would present itself as a challenge? Mm-hmm. Okay. So in the past, when you when you demonstrated or executed tough love, what was the result of that? Okay, so when you in the past when you executed tough love, you alienated people, right? And so when you executed tough love in the past, was it generally, literally, was it a tough conversation because it was in their best interest? They just didn't want to hear it. Mm-hmm. Okay, gotcha, gotcha. So, give me an example of a situation that might occur down the road or now within your Viridian business that you would put in this category of it being a quote unquote challenge. and let's talk through how possibly to handle that. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. So, given her pattern of behavior so far, um, what would be one of the best things you could do from a leadership perspective? Okay, so that might be a good place to start. What else could you do? Okay. Well, if you had to think outside the box for a second, are there any solutions that you could demonstrate as a leader that would not include her at all? Seeing what you can get done. Yeah, I mean, or in addition, just a short circuit for time as well here, but just keep going and growing your business. Yeah, it's that would be I would say that in conclusion, of this leadership stuff is I can't emphasize enough that whatever it is that I can already tell if people don't have what they want right now in their life or in their business, even with Viridian specifically, 'cause that's really where I work with most of you guys directly. If their business is not where they want it to be, it's because they have a lot of growing to do personally still. They're directly correlated, right? So the ones whose business, if you think about the 16 ranks that we have, and you broke them down into four categories of four, um, it's a reflection of how much personal development. Because yeah, the $20,000 a month, right, or $50,000 a month, or whatever it is, all that's great. But really, the reason that you get that is because of the person that you become in the process, and that's why events like any event that really requires or that revolves around personal development or professional growth, um, it's all this whole life is about becoming more, right? And the more we become, the more that we'll attract like, right? So ultimately, those little things that would typically have impacted us before or in the past, probably would not impact us as much going forward, because we're becoming a greater version. We're super.
we're superseding, we're advancing to a higher level of self awareness and consciousness, and associating with different people at different levels as well. I mean, to be at an event this past weekend where people paid, $4,000 or $5,000 of their own money, and people traveled from Sweden and Norway and Japan and 45 different countries to be there. You're dealing with a different caliber of person, right? I mean, it's just by nature, right? So that's a big part of it as well is to just continue to become more, and the best way to do that is through personal development. So guys, as we're wrapping up here, and thanks Danielle for sharing that. Um, Let me see here. Okay, just muted everybody there. So the realities of leadership is, you have to just, number one, be aware of them before you embark upon the journey. Maintain your perspective, and nurture your network of support. So obviously, you want to have people there that are in your network that are there for support and that do support you. Um, and then building confidence in yourself. You want to set some goals you can actually accomplish. You want to be able to visualize success and maybe do a meditation of your own each day and think about yourself in that success mode. Start a victory wall or a vision board or something like that. Pick some low-hanging fruit, and again, that goes back to the bullet point number one, which is building success stories. Naturally maintaining a positive outlook and surround yourself with supportive people. People, by the way, who offer different points of view or who aren't always supportive are also very helpful too. But you do want to have an inner circle of people that do support you and that really kind of help you continue to strive to become the best version of yourself. And then dare to dream. Just always do that. So the homework, guys, is this. This is the last assignment here, the last day. Um, is I want you to get a blank sheet of paper out, and it's going to include really three things. The first thing is all the areas again that you feel like that you have strength in, and then I want you to write down one thing that you want to work on, okay, in the next 12 months, the next year, that will help you become a better leader. So the first thing is all the gifts and skills and talents that you do have. The second thing is the one thing that you want to focus on enhancing or getting better at in the next 12 months. And then I want you to write a short little story. Could be a page, 2 pages, whatever your heart desires. Don't go crazy or kill yourself, but write a short story about you as a leader. What does it look like? What has to happen for you to feel like you're a leader? What is occurring in your life when you are leading? Just describe this version of the story. Who's around you? What are you doing with your leadership? How are you using it? How are people benefiting from it? What's the reaction, the stories that they're sharing with you? And because guys, the more you visualize this stuff, and the more you think about it, and the more you write about it, and the more you put pen to paper, the more of a reality it has to come true. So that'll be the end. And then the last part here, I'm going to talk to you guys about this during our one-on-one calls in terms of where do we go from here? What are some opportunities to carry on some level of momentum so that this doesn't just drop off and everything's over. I think you'll be somewhat relieved to have some of your time back. Some of you might also miss the regularity of these sessions, but we'll talk during our one-on-one calls. So I'm going to unmute the lines here, and if anybody has any last things to say or share, I will actually, sorry, Sandy, I have to mute yours. I had the only feedback there. But guys, everybody else is unmuted. I know a few people have their self-muted, but we're going to wrap up the call here. And if anybody has any closing words or comments, please feel free to share. Awesome. Well, guys, guess what? You guys have 12 weeks worth of stuff, and you have hours worth of homework that you've all done on your own in between each session. And so at this particular point, I already know that you guys are all leaders. Why do I know that? Because you're on this call right now. You were on every call for 12 weeks or as best as you possibly could. So I already know how amazing the leadership is that's within you already, and that you're demonstrating day by day. So all you need to do is to go out there and just do it.
and just do it and 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 never, ever, ever quit. Ever. And guys, it's been a pleasure. It's been a joy. I can't wait to talk to you guys the rest of this week. And God bless, and thanks for the commitment and the sacrifice you guys have made to be on here, and thanks for investing in yourself. So, you guys rock the house. I'll talk to you guys soon. See ya.